Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Planet Grom, where the aim is to show people the world around them with videos answering questions and seeing sights on motorcycles. But in this episode, we're actually going to answer the question of how to make YouTube channel art, specifically for the TV, and briefly touch on the motivations and goals for the channel and my Grom specifically. I'll be using a first generation iPad Air, a Studio 53 pencil stylus, and Sketchbook Pro. The iPad makes for a decent platform even after all this time and all the updates that have been pushed to it, though the keyboard is definitely starting to lag in some writing apps that I use. For art, though, it's performing fine. The stylus takes some getting used to as it's shaped like a carpenter's pencil, which is flat so it doesn't roll away on a table. That's certainly convenient, but it does take a while to adjust your grip and feel for it. Sketchbook Pro is honestly one of many art apps out there, but it's my favorite, probably because I spent the most time getting used to it and how to work inside it. I suppose the same could be said for any app that anyone puts time into, and everyone has their preferences. This one's just mine. When I visualized the finished product here, I basically had it split into 3 different sections: the photo, the islands, and the logo. The logo was done months ago when I started this as a blog before deciding to shift to video, and it was a collaboration between me and a guy named Charlie Mabry, who did the font. Charlie's a cool guy. We'll talk about him in a little bit. The photo was also pretty easy to add to the piece because one of the great things about Hawaii is that you don't have to go far to find a picturesque background. Between the mountains, beaches, cliffs, trees, sand, beautiful roads, maybe some not so beautiful roads, there are all sorts of vistas that make great backdrops. And then there's the islands. I wanted to include the islands because while I know this is called the Planet Grom, Hawaii is very special to me. I've lived here twice now and visited it a bunch as a kid. It's one of the few places in the world that feel like home, and it's basically because of Hawaii that this channel exists. It's got a rich culture, tons of things to do, and some great people. You can surf, hike, sightsee, eat delicious examples of just about any cuisine, Mexican excluded for some reason, and you can ride scooters or motorcycles year-round. The people are warm and nice, usually. Overall, the islands are special places, not just to me, but to tons of folks, so yeah, I definitely wanted to include them. But I also wanted them to be subdued because I don't want to give the impression that this channel is going to be solely about Hawaii or Oahu specifically. My day job is serving in the United States Air Force, and that means that I'll have to move eventually and hope to continue writing wherever I go because there's always questions out there that need answering. Anyway, back to the art. Once I had the sections in mind, I began to use different layers to put together rough ideas of where I want things. This is easily the hardest thing to get used to with digital art because in the beginning, it's easy to forget which layer you're working on and give yourself even more work to do as you correct your errors and regain your ground. I've messed up plenty of pieces by making this mistake. So I made one layer the outline of the islands, one layer the black fill, and then another layer under it for a white border to the outside to let those who look hard enough know that the islands aren't shadows. Then, once I have everything with the islands exactly how I want it, I show the photo layer and increase the transparency of the islands so they're more subtle. After the islands are finished, I erase the background of the Planet Grom logo, and I'm basically finished. As with physical art, it's important to take your time with digital art. If you try to rush and cut corners, you'll make mistakes and then eat up more time correcting your error before moving on in a manner that you should have from the start, even when it comes to something like erasing. Start with a big eraser and then work down to a smaller one. This video is only about 8 minutes because the recorder in Sketchbook Pro speeds things up, but it took me about an hour or so to get it how I wanted. And the whole reason I'm putting so much effort into something like this is because I hope the channel is successful, not just for my sake, but because I kind of want people to copy me and start making YouTube channels about their local areas, answering questions that people may have. Everyone has questions about everywhere, and seeing the cities, towns, or rural areas that people live on all over the planet while answering questions might help us all gain perspective and make everything feel a little less different. At least that's the goal. Finally, regarding my Grom and Charlie, I've got specific plans to make it my own with Charlie's help. It's not that I don't love the yellow, but it's already associated with Grom YouTube star Fooligan to the point where some people have stopped calling it school bus yellow and started calling it Fooligan yellow. And while I have nothing at all against Fooligan, I want my Grom to be more representative of me, which is easy to do with all the aftermarket parts and accessories made for the Grom. But Charlie's mod is going to be special. See, a while back, before Charlie decided to get an Africa twin and started venturing through the wilds of Arizona, he displayed a pretty big talent for painting bikes with his old Grom. He had painted it to look like it had gone through some sort of blood puddle, and while that sounds pretty gnarly, it turned out awesome. So I wrote and asked if he could do the same thing, but with a transparent neon green instead of red, so it looks like I ran through a puddle of slime instead. And all because, in addition to being a rider, airman, and aspiring YouTuber, I'm also a Ghostbuster. Every state in the US has at least one Ghostbusters chapter, and they're almost always staffed with some of the warmest people that you can imagine. They're all nerds, no getting around that. But it's a good thing. And more importantly, they're the type of people that bend over backwards to help someone else out. They organize charity events, do fundraisers, and basically act as public servants together in a way that would have been impossible, or at least less successful, had they done it alone. And they do it all while having fun dressed up as some of the most awesome scientists in cinematic history. That's what really drew me into the community, that and the previously unfulfilled need to have a film-accurate proton pack of my own. So I figured I can pay Charlie to pay my Grom like it ran through some of the slime, and add some Ghostbusters logos on the fairing, and I'll ride it to charity events and let kids hop on for pictures. The Grom is uniquely proportioned to look perfect for a kid anyway, and who wouldn't want a picture on a real motorcycle? There are also plans of bringing a khaki shirt with patches and a kid-sized proton pack so they can look legit on the bike. What kid wouldn't like that? Answer? No kid who's seen the movies. Anywho, those are the plans for the bike, for the channel, and how I made this channel art. Leave your questions about Hawaii in the comments and it might get answered on the next video. I hope you enjoyed this brief walkthrough, and until next time, mahalo nui loa.